Hello, hello, hello. It is me, your True Hill Phenom SP3. We are back once again with our Dark Side of the Ring reviews. But we are all done with season two. Season two is all wrapped up. The good news is they have all been set for 2021, the return for season three. But
Woo!
Nice.
of course, but before that, we gotta review season one. So we are back to review season one, episode one, The Match Made in Heaven, with the Macho Man, Randy Savage, and Miss Elizabeth. I am back once again with the princess of all the True Hills, the first lady of the True Hills, Miss Chrissy Love.
Woo! Oh yeah, we are back, and I am so excited to do this episode of Dark Side of the Ring. Linda Hogan has a lot of stories, and I wish she could have told more.
Like she's so excited she kicked the camera. That was
I
awesome.
know, I know. See?
And we have a very special guest with us. He is the resident True Hill alcoholic. He joined us for season two finale for the final days of Owen Hart for our special review, our roundtable with Romeo. He is Mr. Top Guy JJ.
Ooh, yeah, I don't know if the lights are shining, but Chrissy over there is glowing. She's glowing over there, you know? Elizabeth and the True Hills, yeah, except the end.
Woo!
So, we are talking about the match made in heaven. It is the story of the Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth. But before we do anything, this is your quick reminder. Drop us a like if you enjoyed this video. It helps the YouTube algorithm. It helps the channel be exposed to more wrestling fans like yourself. And also push that iCard down at the bottom or push the subscribe button below and the bell to stay notified for all the great content right here on True Hill Heat. So, this one is a very good episode chronicling the whole career of the Macho Man Randy Savage as well as Miss Elizabeth. It starts off with one of the key people behind the scenes of probably the more memorable moments in WWE, WWF history, Mr. Bruce Pritchard, the host of Something to Wrestle With, who met Randy Savage back in Houston, Texas, and worked behind the scenes for WWF while Randy was on top. He talks about Randy living the gimmick 24/7 from the moment that he met him on and off the camera. He was just so intense. We also are introduced to the brother of Randy Macho Man Savage, the genius Lanny Poffo, who was also a professional wrestler. Kind of talks about he says, can he say that Randy was a bedwetter? I think that Lanny really added a lot of the humanizing of the Macho Man over the top character, while Bruce Pritchard kind of gave us more of the like behind the scenes, like kind of telling the stories of Macho Man's career. How do you guys think about both of their contributions to this episode? We'll start off with Top Guy JJ.
You know what's funny is that when I found out that they were brothers, I didn't believe it.
Me
So I was like,
too. Oh my
just because
God,
they were
yes.
so different. And it's like, you're not used to that in wrestling. Like, they're not brothers. They're just playing this shit off, whatever. And as you saw, but, you know, their insights had, it was, as you said, it completed, like, what was to be a really, really interesting story, which I had such a unique comparison to two of the Macho Man when we get a little deeper into it. Like, I have one name in mind of who I thought he was.
Okay.
How about you, Miss Christie?
Definitely. I as JJ just said, I too did not know that they were brothers until like a few years ago. But yeah, I was like, they're such different people, and like he gave the more like humanist side to who his brother was, and then Bruce give you like the more characterized part of who Macho Man is or was. So the two of them brought a lot to the table, and a lot of stories that they told were just great for this whole Dark Side of the Ring episode.
Next, we come to who you call the MVP of this episode, Linda Hogan,
Yes, yes, yes.
the ex-wife of Hulk Hogan, who is also a close personal friend of Elizabeth. Talks about how she and Elizabeth were the only two women like behind the scenes in WWF that rode on the road with their husbands. So, why do you say Linda was the MVP here? I mean, in my opinion, I definitely agree with you because
Okay.
as a hardcore wrestling fan, as someone
Mhm.
that a lot of this was nothing new to me, like a lot of the stories, knowing like the
Mhm.
behind the scenes beef, knowing that Randy was so controlling, the only one that gave us a different perspective was Linda Hogan, kind of
Right.
telling what was Elizabeth going to, and she told the bad and the good about
Yes.
Elizabeth, which we'll
Yes.
get into. But what's your reasoning?
I say that she is the MVP of this episode because she gave the side of Macho Man and of Elizabeth. Like she was another female that was there, and they can keep each other company. Linda helped do Elizabeth's hair, and help pick out outfits. She gave the insight of like what her role was or what she was there to do as they were on the road living this life of what their husbands did. And I feel like she is definitely the MVP because she told these stories from both sides, and she probably had more stories to tell. But in this limited time, she probably could have gotten more detailed and more depth of like certain things that happened as we will go on and talk about the story of how Liz going missing when she was supposed to be like staying with Linda and the kids. So it's definitely I'm sure she held back or they might be edited it out, but I'm sure that she had more to give.
Oh, most definitely. She was the close confidant there. But we're
Yep.
also introduced to Scott Hall, former pro wrestler, as well as a friend of both Randy and Liz. He talks
Mhm.
about how Randy and Liz met in a local gym, and Liz said, "Your eyes are so red," and Randy responded, "You should see how they look from this end."
And
So.
he was like, "Is that what got him?" He was like, "Yeah, I guess." And they, and they, so it was like, them started to like, date or whatever, and then they got married in her mom's living room.
Just before Randy debuted for the WWF. Jimmy Hart, a former wrestling manager himself, a legend in the wrestling business, and also a friend of Randy, talks about how Randy called him up, asked him how things were going in New York, and that
Hmm.
Jimmy responded and told him that they wanted him to come over to the WWF. And then when Randy comes to the WWF, they tell him that they want Randy's character to be with a valet, and Randy says that he has no other person but Elizabeth to fill that role, and wanted to travel with her like directly, and just wanted to have her close by him as
Right,
he
so you can
traveled
watch
the
her.
road. Who also, like Jake the Snake Roberts talks about that, who also contributed to the documentary, as well as Eric Bischoff. What are your thoughts on the whole Randy being controlling, or what did you hear before this documentary about Randy Savage being controlling? What's top guy JJ?
Seeing like it was one of those deals that you would think that there were, especially growing up in wrestling, that they're playing this duo facade like on
Mhm.
TV, and it didn't seem like this is how they were. But there was so many contributions to this episode. Like you would to
Mhm.
think about everyone that was in this. There was a lot of really, really deep, profound, professional insight to this episode,
Yeah.
and they all were consistent. It was so consistent that he was pretty much who he was. That this is who he was in and out, and his controlling style. It was just he loved her so much, he didn't know how to trust her. So it was like if he wasn't right there next to her, he couldn't control the narrative because she wasn't in his eyesight. And
Mm.
this was very, very normal, apparently, back in the 80s and 90s, with that lack of independence and just letting them spread their wings and just be themselves.
Mhm.
And but this was one of those rare occasions where you see it on live television and you see it as a part of an entertainment package, and then they turned it into something that was actually profitable.
First, they talk about how Randy really got his big break or big breakout performance at WrestleMania 3 against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Talking about how epic it was and how it really put Randy on the map. They then transitioned from there to talk about with Linda Hogan as well as Jimmy Hart, how Hulk Hogan used to invite Savage and Liz over to his house for parties, and how this was like the first time Liz really looked like happy because she was around other people. They also talked about how Randy and Terry talked about in detail the how the angle between them would go on, and the angle that we're talking about is of course the Mega's powers implode, which we have named on True Hill Heat YouTube channel as the greatest of all time when it comes to WrestleMania build-ups. Honestly, go back and watch it. It's probably the most work ahead of time that WWE has ever done for a story. Just planning it out and having those storyline beats, it's just a perfect story. It's just awesome. What's your memories of that whole storyline, Miss Chrissy?
I remember, and it was like maybe like months, almost like a year to like build up to like WrestleMania 5, to be honest. It all started out on like Saturday night main events, and like, they were like just being together, probably just like teaming up one by one, and then they was like, all right, let's get this thing together. Then they made their names the Mega Powers, and they had Liz there, and then they had the same colors, they had the yellow and red on, and it's just a definite good build up of like how it was, and then it shows like how they manipulate Randy's character, and then being like his whole like control and trustworthy, and he uses Hulk Hogan as the savior because he was like the face of the company. And they're gonna build up Hulk Hogan around this whole facade of like how he's gonna save Liz. Like Liz needed, to be saved from this controlling, monster as Macho Man would be. So it was definitely, something that I was surprised to hear that they helped plan that whole thing out, and is at Hulk Hogan's house. You know what I'm saying? So definitely a great story, one of the greatest like stories that was told by two people. Well, it was three actually.
Well, we can talk about it in detail. I talk about it on that countdown, like I said before, but I think no one does it justice just like Bruce Pritchard. Bruce Pritchard kind of talking about how it was the all-American guy versus this psychopath who was so controlling and intense. And what's the only thing that can get in the way? A woman.
A woman.
So it's just awesome how Bruce Pritchard talks about everything. Even before that, talking about how they wanted the fans to hate Savage but love Liz. It's just all those dynamics. He just explains it so well. They talk about after the Mega Powers implodes, Liz decides she wants to take time off. So the WWE creates a whole new character for the Macho Man, making him the Macho King. Randy partners with the Sensational Sherry, which is some of his best promo work is with Sensational Sherry. Go out your way to watch that on WWE Network or on YouTube. You can get the clips up on YouTube. I've imitated one of those promos before. They are awesome. But they talk about how that led into the whole build up and lead up to WrestleMania 7. Lanny talks about how the fans really wanted Liz to come back this whole entire time. He was Macho King and partnered with Sherry. So they also talk about with Bruce Pritchard how Randy wanted to take time off. So they build up to the whole breakdown of the iconic moment of Macho Man and Liz reuniting at WrestleMania 7. Probably one of the happiest moments in wrestling history. As a kid, like, what was your reaction to this, Top Guy JJ? Before you were a resident alcoholic.
Wow. I mean, and just wow. Recapping all of this stuff, like it's you realize that Macho Man's stories were so ahead of time. Like they were just so ahead of its days. Like his stories were literally the absolute best on in wrestling television. Like and that time where he basically just didn't want anything to do with Liz, and then all of a sudden here comes this evil bitch, Miss Sensational Sherry, and then she's manipulating him, and she's making him this bigger asshole, and it's just like what happened to him? It's like literally is what happened to one of my like he's not the same. He's this jerk. Like he's a complete jerk right now. Like somebody needs to check him. And it was infuriating. Like, it was really infuriating because seeing this stuff, like, this is WrestleMania 7. This is leading up into WrestleMania 7, 6, around that, like right after 6, but going into 7, and you're like, this is almost 30 years ago. So we're kids.
Yeah.
And
I
seeing
was 7.
this guy just being rude and nasty to everybody after just spent so much time cheering for him, and it was oh my god, the roller coaster of roller coasters. But as his stories were, it was just phenomenal. Like the work that he did with Sherry, the work that he had with the rebuilding with Liz. But that WrestleMania 7 was literally the first time that I probably cried during a wrestling event. Like, it was like, I was so goddamn happy. Like, I was so happy when she ran through that in that black and white, that sequin shirt with the white stars.
That outfit was epic. Like, oh my god. I want that outfit now.
When she did her little queen run and then grabbed her, knowing she don't know how to fight for shit, and she just ragdolled it for her man. Like, it was epic, man. It was a beautiful, beautiful moment.
You know what was great about that whole moment too? The commentators, Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan on commentating. Then, freaking gold. That is gold. That is golden at its finest. When they see her, like they kept panning, they was like, he's like, Gorilla, who's that? That's Elizabeth. And it's just like, y'all was like, what? Like, what is she doing here?
And all you hear is, she loves him! She loves him! Like, it was like, yes, she does! Go get your man! Go get your man,
girl!
Like, it was gold.
And Bobby Heenan is like, Sherry's upset because that was her meal ticket. What are you talking about? Her career's over, too.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love Heenan on commentary. But like you guys said, it was ahead of this time. It's really like that golden era type of stuff that's timeless. So that whole scene transitions into the match made in heaven at the SummerSlam 1991. The talking heads kind of talk about how both Randy and Liz were giddy about it, really treating it like it was their own wedding day. But of course, that led into the reception and the feud between Jake the Snake Roberts and Randy Macho Man Savage. Jake the Snake were probably my favorite story of this whole episode. He talks about the night that the snake bit Randy and how Randy made Jake have the snake bite him first in the locker room to prove that he had it fixed. Jake was pissed off about this when Randy asked him, he was like, "How you feeling? Are you feeling any woozy?" And he's like, "No, I'm just kind of pissed right now." So he was so pissed that when he goes to put the snake on Randy, he slapped the snake to get it more angry. So when it bit Randy, it bit him so hard that he could not get it off. Woo! Oh my god. I remember that as a kid. I was scared to death.
I thought he was gonna die. I really thought, I was like, yo, how Cobra gonna bite him? Ain't they're poisonous? Like, he's gonna die. Like, why are they doing this? Like, that is so bad. Like, I was so scared. I was a little girl and I was like, they killed Macho Man. They're gonna Jake the Snake killed him. That made me hate Jake the Snake.
So they also talk about how Jake slapped Liz and how Randy was not allowed back in Liz's parents' house until he got revenge on Jake the Snake Roberts. That's how you know for doing your job as a professional wrestler.
Yep, I think her grandfather or her uncle or somebody that like said, "Yo, you can't come in this house." And they're like, "What?" So you defend her? Yeah, he had to defend her honor.
That transition to Elizabeth coming to stay with Linda and the kids in Miami as foreshadowed to. Linda tells the story that she went as she had Liz over. She was helping out with the kids for a couple of days. They were at this kind of like resort, and Linda tells the story that she went looking for Liz because Liz had gone missing, and she didn't see her until the next morning. When she sees Liz, she says that she met a gentleman in the resort who had an extra room that let her stay there. So, of course, Linda, as a friend, thought that was kind of suspicious, but still had her friends back. But of course, Randy Randy Savage was not the same. He was very upset that he was not hearing from Liz, that she wasn't answering his calls. So he rushes to Florida. He rushes in Linda's room and tells her to sit right there until he finds Elizabeth. He gets into a whole shouting matchup with Hulk Hogan, and him and Hulk go off to look for Liz. They run into Elizabeth. So Randy and Liz go off. Hulk comes back to the room and tells Linda that they went off to try to kind of settle things. And Linda kind of talks about this incident and says that it not only ruined the relationship, she thinks, between Liz and Randy, but also between Randy and Hulk Hogan.
Hogan.
So Miss Chrissy, what's your thought on this whole situation with Liz's getaway to Florida?
Liz already knew she had a scapegoat, so she was like, "I'm gonna go and go hang out with Linda and Terry, and I'm gonna take care of their kids." No, you had your motive. As my grandmother told me, only thing open late at night is legs. And if she couldn't find her, you know where she was at. Now I was watching Linda, and I was like, now, bitch, you know good and well, if you couldn't find your friend, we didn't have cell phones then. You couldn't find your friend, and she was with some man who had an extra room. Please. Right, and she probably got it popping more than just that one ass time. Please.
Oh, poor
These hoes
Randy.
ain't loyal. That tarnished my reputation of Miss Elizabeth. I was like, damn, yo, these hoes ain't loyal.
Might be onto something as to why he was so crazy.
Right? Exactly. He knew she was. Yup.
Macho was, like I said, the man was ahead of his time, boy. He knew these getaways were up to no good. There was something wasn't right when it came to these getaways. You know, all of a sudden you got a spot in Miami, like you got a spot where you could just go and coop up and chill. And oh man, I'm probably gonna end up using that line that Chrissy said. Boy, the only thing that's open late at night is legs? Well, that shit was some golden shit right there. I'm just saying. Like,
I might tell Romeo to just clip that part.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, it was kind of like you just literally see that's one of those rare occasions where you see real life stories are imitated through the world of professional wrestling. So it's like we kind of seen what they were going through on camera, but it just literally was the same thing in real life. And it was kind of, those are kind of weird when you kind of literally go somewhere else completely instead of just drifting off somewhere. You literally go to another person's house because you need to get away from your husband. Like, that was kind of weird back then. But I mean, that was her way of, she just couldn't, he must have really been hard to deal with, to say the least.
Right. If you want to run away from your own man.
I just think that she just felt so isolated. She just broke free, and just got too free. That's what it sounds like. From here, it kind of just started like a whole domino effect. Like a few weeks later, Liz contacts Linda, as Linda tells the story, to let her know that she had just left Randy. Linda kind of paints this picture of Liz in her convertible with the shades, with the wind in her hair, riding off into the sunset and away from Randy. But everyone of the talking heads kind of talk about how Randy just wasn't the same after Liz left him. Bruce then talks about how one day Vince coming to the car just gets in and he says, "Well, gentlemen, Macho Man Randy Savage is now the proud property of WCW." And Bruce is just shocked because he feels like it comes out of nowhere. We then transition to Eric Bischoff talking about how he brought in Randy, and how the WWF basically wanted to put him out to pasture. Vince made him a color commentary during his later half of his WWF run, and he also, basically, and he's also talks about how Macho came with the Slim Jim sponsorship. So at the time, I know you were a big WWF fan, Miss Chrissy Love. What was your reaction to Macho jumping from WWF to WCW?
I definitely would have left too, especially once they didn't really say if him and Hogan were still, cool at the time, but once Hogan left and I'm still here, you have this whole string of new people coming, and now you put me on the sidelines. Like, no, I can still go at it with these guys. I can teach them a few things. I can still be toe to toe. I can still, give you, good matches. But you put me on the sideline and you made me be a commentator with you. So I mean, definitely, I'm sure it wasn't probably if it was a money thing, but I'm sure if these people are gonna give me a chance to still wrestle and do what I love, then yes, I'm gonna go.
So they then talk about how Randy asked for Elizabeth to be brought into WCW. Hall says
Still
that
looking out for people, yo. Still looking out for hoes. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Hall says that Liz was brought in and paid $250,000 a year to just stand there and look pretty, basically. What was your thoughts? Like, I know you were kind of you would float kind of between WWF, WCW during those days, JJ. So, what was your thoughts on Liz coming in to WCW, joining the Macho Man? Basically, what you saw on camera. What was your thoughts?
Definitely not surprised that I saw Liz join WCW when I saw Macho Man made the jump. And it was kind of one of those things that it was like when Hulk Hogan went there, it was like, all right, this is gonna start something different. Like this is the National Hall thing. Like obviously that just started this whole floodgate of a ton of people coming, but seeing like the classic guys that were starting to go there, like Hulk Hogan, Hogan went there, Macho Man went there, Beefcake went there. Like you
yeah.
started to see all of these generational guys that WWF just wasn't using anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they still had stuff left in the tank. You see guys that's still 50 still wrestling. So that means they just didn't see what the wrestlers saw, that they still had years left in their tank. And WCW just saw it. One, I'm taking your stars, I'm taking your money, I'm taking your ratings, and I'm screwing you at the same time.
Yep.
So it was power moves, but also giving them the opportunity to still show it that they're still capable of getting things done. But it really wasn't surprising to see Liz. So honestly, it was not surprising to see Liz when she joined him in WCW, no matter what their marital status was.
Mm-hmm.
But from there, Linda talks about finding out that Liz is now dating Lex Luger. And she
Oh, that
asks
piece of shit.
when Liz tells Linda, she asks, but isn't Lex married? So yes, Liz is having an affair with Lex Luger when she
Mm.
comes into WCW, and apparently Lex puts Liz in the same apartment complex as his wife. Eric Bischoff then talks about Liz and Lex's drug use in their relationship. Hall talks about Liz taking the same amount of pills as Lex when she is not built like a bodybuilder like Lex Luger. We then transition to a domestic violence incident between Lex and Liz. Bischoff then talks about having Luger on his podcast to speak about the night that Liz died. We hear the voice of Lex Luger, and Lex Luger says that they were just sipping wine and popping pills at home, and then he noticed that Liz wasn't breathing. We overhear the phone call from Luger to the police, and it is very troubling to listen to. Honestly, like I can't even do it justice for how like scared he sounds, but also at the same time, you clearly can hear that he is under the influence of something. Linda then talks about getting the call from Terry Hogan and that Liz was dead. Bischoff talks about being pissed when he found out because he felt that Lex took advantage of Liz by using
Mm.
prescription drugs. And we even see comments from Savage right after her death kind of saying remorse and being very sad that she was gone. So what were your guys' thoughts on the whole Liz and Lex Luger relationship and how it led to her untimely passing? We'll start with you, Miss Chrissy.
I was never a Lex Luger fan, to be honest. I thought he was corny. Um, and I thought that when they brought him over, and this was right after Hogan was about to leave, they brought him as trying to be like the face of the company and everything. I really was never drawn into him. But then finding out that he was a part of the situation and basically, like Bischoff said, manipulating almost. Well, I don't know if he manipulated her because I wasn't there, but I'm just going by what was said. And she was just looking for something different than what she was already around, I'm guessing. And I guess that's who she was drawn to, someone else to take care of her and to like not be like uh, uh manipulating. I mean, not manipulating her, but like being like what she was already with, which was with Randy, and pretty much, I guess that's what she saw in Lex. But knowing that he was married and she was living in the same building as his wife and children, is just like it's red flags, all flags on the play, man, flags all over. And then like Scott Hall said, like you're taking pills like this big man is taking, like, and that was considered partying. Like we're gonna drink, we're gonna take pills. Like what? Like it's just a whole sad situation. You can hear like he was under the influence, and it's all sad that that the situation happened, and then he was not able to like save her or whatever. And I'm happy he took accountability for what happened. And you know, it's a sad and unfortunate situation that happened, and it was an accident. I'm sure he didn't wake up that day and say, you know what, I'm gonna make her do this, and she's not gonna die. Like, you know, that was not his intent, you know. And it's just I'm sure he has to live with that situation now every day, and you know, it's just a sad situation, and it's gone too soon.
Absolutely. How about you, JJ?
I mean, kind of piggyback what Chrissy said. I wasn't really the biggest fan of Lex Luger either. Like, I might be in the minority, but I didn't really care about him. WCW, nope. WWF, I didn't care at all.
Either
the Narcissist,
one.
The American Hero, metal plate and forearm. I just thought he was corny.
Corny.
Sorry. Yep. I'm sorry, but
don't be sorry.
As far as the situation, it was just literally a broadened version of an unhappy man that's in a marriage and a lost woman. Like it's literally just one of those things that you see out loud. Like you kind of see it. It's in the world of the media before media that, you know, this happens all the time. Like you see these unhappy marriages that falls apart, but we just don't see it. And then he goes and he cheats, but we saw who he was cheating with. Yeah. So it was like right in our face. And clearly Liz was lost. Like she was a lost soul after she had separated from Macho Man. Like she wanted to be separated, but had no idea what to do after she separated. Like she didn't have like a real purpose in life after that. And you could clearly see that. And obviously it's a super sad thing to see, but she was just so broken that it just didn't matter really she just went with whatever the wave was. And Luger, unfortunately, he's the professional wrestler that's married, so he's got to take the brunt of the responsibility for it. Yeah. And he's not a doctor, so he doesn't understand that he's giving her the same stuff that he's taking, even though he's like 3 times her size. So these are hunks. These guys don't have brains. These are just hunks that perform. So he's just giving her he's not going to cut the pill in thirds. He just doesn't fucking know. He's a druggie giving stuff to somebody that's lost. So this is just how this business was going for these guys. And it's just so fucking sad to see where these wrestlers went, because you've seen this was like the start of like about a 2-decade span of wrestlers dying too early. People in the business dying too early. And
that makes common sense. Yes.
How many people has just been lost from this because 1, they're prideful because they're all professional athletes. 2, they're amongst each other. They're a cult for each other. So there's no they don't get to get a perspective from the outside because everybody else thinks they're fake, even though they go through real shit.
They're just trying to live their life, and it's a tough one. So we then transition and return finally to talk about Randy remarrying and finding Christ in his life during his later half of his years. And then Lanning tells the sad story of the day that he finds out that his brother got in a car accident. He says that he was at the airport and he got a text that his brother and his wife had been in a very bad automobile accident, that his brother's wife was hurt, but still okay, but his brother was in critical condition, and he knew right then. I had chills watching this again, and I remember watching it
Yeah.
for the first time. It was the same way because I remember when I found out about it. Randy crashed into a tree and had a heart attack on impact. They show a nice memorial that has been made at the tree in which Randy crashed into by Lenny, as well as numerous fans in the area. Bischoff and Linda Hogan both talk about how Randy was so loving and caring to kids, and that's how they looked at him as a person, because he had such a big heart and was so caring to kids. Like Lenny tells a cool little story about a kid wanting an autograph and Macho asking him if he's not good in school, he's gonna be in trouble. So I love stuff like that, because I'm the same way with kids. Scott Hall talks about how Liz should be in the Hall of Fame, and all the talking heads trying to talk about how Elizabeth's impact on not only the wrestling business, but most of all on the career of Macho Man Randy Savage can never be like really explained or quantified. So what are your guys' overall thoughts on the first real love story in professional wrestling history, and the overall impact of both the Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth? We'll start with you, Miss Chrissy.
It definitely is like our childhood like love story played out at its finest. I think it's one of the greatest stories. It's sad to say that they're both are not here. But it's definitely one of it. It brings back my childhood a lot when I watch videos and see things of when they were wrestling, and it just defines like great wrestling, great storytelling at its finest. And definitely, yes, she should be in the Hall of Fame. Even though it is a man-made thing, it's she is one of the trendsetters of valets. Like she's definitely she's the first lady for a reason. And it goes down, and she definitely should be. I'm not sure why she's not, but she doesn't have to be, because we already know who she is and what she has done. So definitely both of them are two great people of wrestling that we will never forget and will always remember, because they were a part of something that has been, catapulted and made us what we love about wrestling, pretty much.
How about you, JJ?
So first of all, I completely agree that Miss Elizabeth, there's no question that she should be in the Hall of Fame. And it's because she is she's the first person for me personally that actually brought emotion into professional wrestling. I was the first. Her stories with her, Macho Man, and whoever she was involved with, Hulk, Jake, anybody that she was in, she made it emotional. Like she made you care for it instead of just seeing who wins and who loses. And she was the first to do this. Never is gonna be duplicated. Will never be better. And the bar was set to a point, like if they're so far ahead of their time with this bar 35 years ago, we're still waiting for something to even come close to that replication, and everyone is failing to do so. And everybody, it's like, because the route has gone so different with females having to know how to wrestle now instead of just being managers. So it's like you got to be multiverse. You got to be an athlete and a manager, instead of how Liz was just a pure emotional manager that brought feelings into matches. And that's gone. And she was the first one to really give you that. Like, to see her reaction when Savage was getting bit, to see her reaction when her man was retired from wrestling, to see her reaction when she was going through the stuff with him and Hulk Hogan, like that was storytelling at its best. And she was in the centerpiece of it all. That's Hall of Fame status right there, because no one has ever done it since.
Yes, honestly, Liz does not get enough credit. She is a pioneer. There would be no other valets in wrestling history if it wasn't for Miss Elizabeth. So they deserve that much credit. And I love stuff like this from Dark Side of the Ring, which tells the complete story of such a great career that was the Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth. So that has been our season 1, episode 1 review of the match made in heaven, the Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth story. We will be back with season 1, episode 2, the Montreal screw job, which in my opinion was
Tell
the
them how you really
worst
feel.
episode of season 1, but we will find out with our next review if it is the worst episode in Dark Side of the Ring's first 2 seasons, because if I remember it as I remember it, it was almost as bad as that Brawl for All episode, which taught us nothing new and covered bad memories in wrestling history.
I'm gonna give it to Brawl for All, but we're gonna see when we watch this again.
Absolutely. So, for our special guest, the resident True Hill alcoholic, Top Guy JJ, for the princess of all the True Hills, Miss Chrissy Love. It is me, your True Hill Phenom SP3. You can follow us at our tags that are listed below. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Push the subscribe button and push the bell to stay notified for all the great content right here on True Hill Heat. So for our Dark Side of the Ring Season 1 review, we are signing off until next time.